Speaking of trying to write a book, I mean, I remember Eckhart Tolle talking about, his first book and trying to get it out. And I'm certainly not Eckhart Tolle, but I just happen to be living in the same city that he lives in, and I happen to be on the same street that we both walk on. I just because I'm in the neighborhood, and he's just not far away, I think. But anyway, on that street, on that note, I want to just talk about, the struggle. I don't know if you would call it a struggle. I don't think that man struggles at all. I think I've done every one of his programs. It's not 100% true, but it feels like it. And he talks about the whole process in his manifestation program about trying to get this book done. And he knew after he woke up, I think you know who I'm talking about. It's Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now, New Earth, wrote a book about stillness, and I think a couple of other little books with Power of Now and Dogs or something like that. But anyway, he's done a few books, but the first one was a struggle. So he woke up in this place. He was in this, maybe you know his story, but his process was he woke up fully, like it's a rare thing that happens. Most of us are in that gradual awakening program. But anyway, he had this spontaneous awakening and at 29, and then for a few years didn't know what that was and wandered around. Anyway, eventually, fast forward a little bit, I don't know the exact chronology, but he thought he felt like there was a book coming and he needed to write it. But he didn't know how to get it done, and he wondered, and then he thought, oh, should I live in England? And then he thought, no, it feels like maybe it needs to be done in North America on the West Coast. So he went to California. That didn't it was better, but not the whole thing. So then he went back to England, and then it's something like this. Eventually he ended up coming back out here to Vancouver. And, that's where things clicked, I guess. And, but before he left England the last time, he went into a church. It's a cool story of his. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing it. That he went into a church and he said, this book has taken so long to come. He went in and he had this word come to him, acceleration. And so he accelerated. He said, he put it out there. Okay, can we speed up the process of writing? And can you do that? Well, you can do that if you're very present, right? I mean, that's his whole story is when you're in the present moment, that's where all creativity comes from. And that's where all our genius gets to express itself, in the various ways, or it'd be music or doing business deals or doing artwork or writing or what have you, right? It's so his process was that. And then, so it took a few years, right? It didn't happen overnight. And that gives me comfort because it feels like I'm taking a few years here. And I've tried the different genres, as I talked about before. And in that process, I feel like I'm also, because I'm studying with him unofficially, I study with lots of people unofficially. In fact, everybody in my orbit, everybody in arm's length of me is my teacher, including all the inner parts that I have and ancestors that have come along the way, to give me inspiration. And I call on them, again, remember, my topic is beauty, and beauty means to be called. So I call on my ancestors to help with this process. I call on the ancestors to help me get focused, so I can really express what it is that needs to be expressed. And one of the things that gets in the way of me, or one of the barriers for me, has been this story in our family. I'm Irish, English descent, mostly Irish, and there's a great story of Ireland, great writers, and no pressure to growing up. It was like who's going to be the next artist, because there's quite a few artists and writers in our family genealogy, and so I just felt like this crazy amount of pressure to do that. And then my dad, and God bless him, he kind of pushed that idea around as well. And who's going to be the next writer artist? And so anyway, so that just was one of those barriers for me. Like, and then I just couldn't. I felt like I couldn't really find my own flow, my own way of doing things. It was much more about trying to perform or trying to write something academic or, try to write something intellectual or something that's worthy of the ancestors or worthy of Eckhart Tolle or worthy of who knows what, it was just, so that was, that was and has, still have moments of that where it feels like I'm just starting to get into my head, and up on the left-hand side of my head, as the science says, logic, linear language, all on the left hemisphere. I think that's been debunked actually, but anyway, but there's some truth in that. That's the area, and there is an area of the brain that looks after that stuff. So I sometimes get stuck there, to be honest. Now maybe that's got to do with my own traumas, my own challenges, my own healing process, and maybe the book coming out is all part of that as well. As I heal, it starts to get clearer. And because how do you write? I mean, how, like this is the thing. How can you? I don't know how to write about. You have a child and you have to. We had to unhook the life support system and let her go. Like, that's the hardest thing anybody's ever going to have to do, right? And so, like, I don't know, like, how do you how do you write about that? How does that get talked about in a worthy enough fashion that honors her life and allows for me to feel like I've been respectful enough to give that give that a proper a proper go, so I struggle with that, and I shut down, and then I get very emotional, or it puts me back in that time. And of course, one of the things that happens about some of these traumas in my life, and I think in most people's life, is that there's quite a bit of, when that was handled really well. So as traumatic and challenging as that was, we had the right village around me, the right teachers and people looking after us. And so as best as that could have been handled, it was handled that way. So there was beauty in that, right? There's the beauty in the terror, the beauty in the sorrow. It was brutal. I had got completely unzipped. It was a terrible time in so many ways. I literally felt like there was a zipper going right down the front of my torso, and it just unzipped, and I had no idea all these traumas. So it started a 7-year underworld journey, and graduate school, and all sorts of things. And again, like, so many things happened within that period as a result of that trauma. I don't know how to write about it. So, I got a poem about Kluani, 7 years after, a 4-line poem, 7 years after she died. We took her off the life support system, and that was beautiful. But 4 short lines of poetry is not, is maybe that's all that's needed, and yet I feel like because that trauma was handled so well, I want to talk about that. What were the ingredients that allowed for that to go so well, and why is it that that was as difficult as it was me getting into the underworld at that time? That time frame of when she was with us was so beautifully handled, and there's so much beauty in it, and I want to share that. I feel like that's part of that's the legacy. Legacy, that's the wrong word. Anyway, my ADHD and all this learning disability stuff that comes up as a result of trauma gets in the way. And so then I come back to, okay, well, I come back to the present moment, learn what I've learned, be patient, like Eckhart Tolle is, get present, trust the downloads, trust the inspiration, the expression, and then I get going again. And then like that gets me, another chapter, another few paragraphs, maybe another poem. Okay, thanks.